Your breakfast is probably the most consistent meal of your life. Same thing, most mornings, for years, maybe decades. Which means if something about it is working against you, it isn't working against you occasionally. It's working against you every single day. And here's what makes this one different from what we talked about last time. This isn't about a food that's secretly bad for you. Most people's breakfast is made of perfectly reasonable things: toast, cereal, fruit, a cup of tea. The problem isn't what's in it. The problem is what's missing. And as you'll see at number 1, when you're eating the thing that's missing. Today on Neura Notes, 5 things wrong with the ordinary breakfast and the fix for each one. The fix takes about 5 minutes and it starts tomorrow morning. Now before we start, the same honesty I give you every week. I'm not a doctor, I'm not diagnosing anything, and I'm not selling you a meal plan or a protein powder. I read the research and bring you what it found, with the sources in the description so you can check every word of it. And there's something I want to be careful about with this one. Most of what I'm going to show you today comes from observational research, studies that follow large groups of people over years and look for patterns. That kind of study can tell you 2 things travel together. It cannot prove one caused the other. So when I say a certain breakfast pattern was linked to slower memory decline, I mean linked, not guaranteed, not cured. I'd rather tell you that plainly than dress it up, because the moment I start overselling this, you should stop trusting me. That said, the pattern here is unusually consistent, and it points somewhere most people aren't looking. And number 1 genuinely surprised me. It isn't about adding anything to your breakfast or taking anything away. It's about a decision most people over 60 make without ever thinking about it. And the research suggests we've been making it backwards. So stay with me to the end for that. And before we start, I'd like to know something. What do you actually eat for breakfast most mornings? Just type it in the comments: toast, porridge, eggs, cereal, nothing at all, whatever it honestly is, and put your age with it. I read every single one, and the pattern across this audience tells me what to cover next. Before the countdown, one idea that makes all 5 make sense. Breakfast isn't just fuel, it's a set of instructions. Your first meal breaks an overnight fast, usually the longest gap you go without food all day. Your body has been running on reserves for 10 or 12 hours, and it's waiting to be told what kind of day this is. 2 things happen at that moment. The first is blood sugar. After a long fast, your body is unusually responsive to what arrives. A meal that's almost entirely fast carbohydrate produces a sharp rise, then an overcorrection, then a dip a couple of hours later. That dip is the mid-morning slump, the one people blame on age or on not sleeping well. Number 5, your breakfast is almost entirely carbohydrate. Picture the standard version: toast or cereal, maybe a piece of fruit, juice or tea with sugar. Every one of those is carbohydrate. There is almost nothing else on the plate. This isn't a guess. In a 9-year study following older adults, researchers measured what people actually ate at breakfast, and carbohydrate accounted for roughly 3/4 of the energy in that meal. That's higher than the recommended range for the day as a whole, concentrated into the one meal eaten after the longest fast. And here's what they found when they followed those people over 9 years. Higher protein and higher fat at breakfast, with lower carbohydrate, were associated with a slower rate of cognitive decline. When researchers modeled swapping just 5% of breakfast energy from carbohydrate to protein, or to fat, that swap tracked with better cognitive scores over time. 5%. That's not a diet. On a normal breakfast, that's roughly 1 egg. Think of it like a fire. Pure carbohydrate is paper. It catches instantly, burns bright, and it's gone. Protein and fat are the log. You want both. Right now, most breakfasts are all paper. The fix isn't to remove the toast. It's to stop letting the toast be the entire meal. Something alongside it every morning. We'll get specific as we go. Now, number 4 is the thing people spent 30 years being told to remove. Econ is muscle. And this is the one nobody thinks about at breakfast. As we age, muscle becomes harder to maintain. The same amount of protein that kept muscle steady at 40 produces a weaker signal at 70. Researchers call this anabolic resistance. The muscle is still there, it just needs a louder message to respond. And after 12 hours without food, your body has been quietly breaking down a little muscle to keep going. Breakfast is the first chance to stop that. Why does muscle matter in a video about your brain? Because the research on aging keeps finding these two tracking together. People who hold on to muscle tend to hold on to cognitive function. So, your breakfast sets your blood sugar for the morning, and it sends the first muscle signal of the day. Every item on this list is one of those two jobs being done badly. Number 4, there's no fat in it. If you're over 60, you lived through the decades when fat was the enemy. Low-fat spread, skimmed milk, fat-free everything. A lot of people rebuilt their entire breakfast around removing it, and were told they were doing the right thing. But look at what that 9-year study found. Higher fat at breakfast, not lower, was associated with slower cognitive decline, and swapping 5% of breakfast energy from carbohydrate to fat tracked with better cognitive scores, the same as protein did. I want to be precise here because this is exactly where these videos go wrong. This does not mean fry everything. It doesn't mean fat is health food. It means that a breakfast with some fat in it behaved better over 9 years than a breakfast with almost none. There's a mechanism that makes sense of it. Fat slows the emptying of your stomach, so the same slice of toast, eaten with something fatty, delivers its sugar more gradually. Less spike, less dip, no mid-morning slump. Fat also carries the vitamins that only dissolve in fat, A, D, E, and K, which you simply absorb less of from a fat-free meal. The fix is small. Half an avocado on the toast instead of low-fat spread. A spoon of nut butter. Olive oil, whole milk in your porridge rather than skimmed. Not more food, different food. Now, number 3 is one you might already be doing without counting it as breakfast at all. Quick pause. If this is useful, if it feels like someone's finally explaining the reasoning instead of just handing you a rule, take a second and subscribe. It costs nothing, and it decides whether this reaches the next person who needs it. Now, number three, part of your breakfast is a drink. We talked about juice in the last video, and I'm not going to repeat that. This is the other half of the problem, and it has nothing to do with sugar. Your body registers fullness differently, depending on whether food arrives solid or liquid. Chewing, the time a meal takes, the stretch in your stomach, these are all signals. A drink skips most of them, so the same calories taken as liquid tend to leave you less full than they would as food. That matters at breakfast specifically, because it's the meal most likely to be liquid. Juice, a smoothie, a large milky coffee with something sweet in it. Some people have all three and eat almost nothing. And there's a second cost that's easy to miss. Every calorie you take as a drink is a calorie you didn't take as food. Food that could have carried protein, fat, and fiber. Appetite tends to shrink with age. If breakfast is small to begin with, filling half of it with liquid leaves very little room for the things that actually do the work. The fix is simply to eat your breakfast rather than drink it. Have the whole fruit instead of the juice. Keep coffee or tea as a drink beside the meal, not as the meal. Now, number 2 is the single biggest gap in the ordinary breakfast. Number 2, there isn't enough protein in it. This is the gap, and it's the one most people over 60 have, without knowing it's a gap at all. Remember anabolic resistance. The idea that aging muscle needs a louder signal to respond. What that means in practice is that a small amount of protein, spread thin, may not be enough to trigger the response at all. It's not that the protein is wasted. It's that below a certain amount at a single sitting, the muscle doesn't get the message, and the ordinary breakfast sits well below that line. A slice of toast has a couple of grams of protein. A bowl of cereal with a splash of milk isn't much better. Most people's breakfast delivers a fraction of what their body needs to hear. Research using National Health Survey data in adults over 60 has looked at protein intake across all 3 meals and cognitive performance, and found that adequate protein tracked with better cognitive results. Other work has found that eating protein consistently, at more meals, not just one dar, was associated with more stable cognitive function in older adults. So the fix is not a supplement. It's an ingredient. 2 eggs, Greek yogurt, plain, as we covered last time, cottage cheese, tinned fish on the toast, leftover chicken, if that doesn't sound strange to you at breakfast. Any of these turns a carbohydrate meal into a complete one. You don't need to change what you like. You need to add one thing to it. And now, number 1. Because it turns out it isn't only how much protein you eat, it's when. Number 1, you're probably eating your protein at the wrong meal. Think about a normal day. Breakfast is toast or cereal, barely any protein. Lunch is light, maybe a sandwich. And then dinner is the real meal, with the meat or the fish on it. That's the pattern for most people over 60. Almost all of the day's protein arrives in the evening. Researchers in Japan looked at exactly this. They studied older adults and split them into 2 groups, people who ate more protein at breakfast than at dinner, and people who did the opposite. The group eating more protein in the morning had measurably better grip strength. And the more of their daily protein arrived at breakfast, the better their muscle mass and grip strength tended to be. Then they tested it directly. 40 older women, 12 weeks, a small amount of milk protein, about 10 grams, taken either in the morning or in the evening. Same protein, same amount. Only the timing changed. The morning group gained muscle mass, the evening group didn't. Now that's a small study, and I'll say so plainly. 40 people is not the last word on anything. But it points the same direction as the breakfast research we've already covered, and the direction is consistent. The morning meal appears to carry more weight than we've been treating it as. And think about why that might be. You've just come off 12 hours without food. Your body has been breaking down a little muscle overnight to keep going. That's the moment it's listening hardest, and it's the moment most people give it toast. So here's the whole video in one sentence. Move some protein from your dinner plate to your breakfast plate, not more food. The same food, earlier in the day. So let's put it together because it's simpler than it sounds. Tomorrow morning, keep everything you already like. Then add one thing with protein and one thing with fat. That's it. 2 eggs on the toast you were already having. Plain yogurt with the fruit you were already eating. Nut butter instead of low-fat spread. Whole milk in the porridge. You haven't given anything up. You've just stopped asking one slice of bread to do a job it can't do. And the honest note, because you'll never get anything else here. Everything in this video is general information, not medical advice, and not tailored to you. The studies I've described show associations, not proof. Some of them are small. If you have kidney disease, protein intake is something to discuss with your doctor rather than change on your own. If you have diabetes or you take medication with food, the same applies. And please be careful of anyone who tells you that one breakfast will protect your memory. That is not what this research says. What it says is that the pattern, repeated every morning for years, appears to matter. Which is good news, because a pattern is exactly the kind of thing you can change. Quick recap, in case you joined partway through. 5 things wrong with the ordinary breakfast. It's almost entirely carbohydrate. It has no fat. Part of it is a drink. It has far too little protein. And at number 1, the protein you do eat is arriving at the wrong meal. So tell me, what do you actually have for breakfast? Type it in the comments and your age with it. I read everyone, and I'm genuinely curious what this audience is eating. And if this was useful, if it felt like someone finally explained why instead of just telling you what, subscribe here to Neura Notes. Every week, what the research actually says about your brain and your memory with the real sources so you never have to just trust me. In the next video, we're going to talk about the supplement aisle because a great many people over 60 are spending real money on their memory, and the research on most of it is not what the packaging suggests.